Okay, so again, just to restate, you are required to take notes on this. You will need to submit these by tomorrow. You will not get to take the test on the machine unless you submit your notes. That will be for all of the demonstrations. You will need to submit notes for all of them. I need to know that you watched it. The goal is to prove to me that you watched it. You're not going to take notes off of the reading assignment. You're going to take notes off of this video. All right, good morning. This is the bandsaw. This is probably, in this shop, this is the workhorse. But you go to other places, other wood shops and stuff like that, where they're actually producing things, you're going to find that that the table saw is probably the most prevalent machine that you use. If you're interested in using the table saw, I invite you to come back later on to take my advanced not my advanced manufacturing, but my advanced woodworking course, and I'll teach you how to use that. Okay, so what I have to do is I have to list to you parts of the machine. Now, I want you to wear goggles. Goggles are always to be worn in the shop at all times. I want you not to be blinded. I want you to be able to give your dream boat a kiss goodnight, and I want you to enjoy that because that's a good thing, and that's the things that people like to do when they go out on dates and stuff like that. And I want you to be able to do it because I don't want you to go out on like this. They'll be looking at you, oh, what happened to you? So this is the bandsaw. This machine is primarily used to cut outside irregular curves. Okay. You can also cut straight cuts with this, but the table saw is a far better machine for cutting straight edges. Okay. So I'm going to go over the parts of the machine. Okay. So this is the upper and lower blade guard. Okay. And you can see the upper wheel and the lower wheel. This lower wheel is the actual drive wheel down here. Okay. We have a tilting table. This table will tilt this way. We have a lamp. This whole section down here, we have the base. You can't really see that in the video here. Let me see if I can turn this down just a little bit. Yeah, there you go. All right, this is the base down here. And down on the back side of the base is a door where you can access the motor. And I don't think you'll be able to see it from the angle that I got, but it's back there. This is the pulley guard. This is where the motor connects with a belt to turn the bandsaw. We have a miter gauge right here, and I'll show you about that in a little bit. In the back here, I'm going to take this off for a moment. And back here, we have the tensioner for the belt, or for the blade. This is a no mess with. This is a Mr. Dufresne only. What this does is it pushes the upper guide wheel up, so it tightens it to a certain tightness. If you over tighten this, you can break the blade. And then we have this red knob right here. Yeah, there it is. And this is the quick release for the blade. This is a Mr. Dufresne only also, so please don't touch these. Because you end up breaking the blades on these, or if it happens, then it actually costs us lots of money. And, you know, I don't want to, you don't want to, you actually mess it up for yourself. Okay, this is the guidepost assembly locking knob, and you just need to break this free. You don't need to, you know, you don't need to be super tight, and you just break it free to loosen it up, and then you can slide the guidepost assembly up. And this whole section here that I'm grabbing is the guidepost assembly. Now, there are other parts on this. So here's the blade guard right here. Okay, this is the blade guard. And if you look in here closely, you will see that there are some bearings. These look like roller skate or skateboard bearings. Okay, and that's kind of, I think it's actually what they are. Okay, and there are two here, one here, and then there's two over here. So on the top portion, there are 5 bearings. And guess what? There are 5 more up underneath, right there. Okay. And so what those do is that stops the bandsaw blade from shifting all over the place. Okay. So bandsaw blades will shift with time. Okay. And the blade will do this. Okay. If you don't do that. And so what that does is it causes that blade to stay put where it needs to be. Okay. Now, okay, we have a tilting table right here. If you remember, there were some knobs back there. And so we can tilt the table. We don't normally do that with this machine. But if the time comes where we need to do that, we can do that. We also have what's called a miter gauge slot right here. And this is where we put our miter gauge. And this fits right in here. And we can control the angle of something that we're cutting by setting it here. And let's say I want to cut a 30-degree angle on my board. I can feed this in here and I can feed it forward. And I can safely cut that because this is being supporting of it. So there's many things that we can do with that. And we also have, you can see this little white spot right here. This is a throat plate, and the throat plate helps with supporting the material underneath, which helps you get a good cut. These do occasionally break. If you break something in the shop, I ask you that you let me know, okay? And I know sometimes I can come across kind of gruff and mean and stuff like that at times, especially when I get stressed out or I'm worried about getting things done or I'm on a deadline. Then, but I need you to come and tell me. And I break things, and it's okay if you break something and you didn't mean to do it. It's okay. I asked you to come and tell me. What frustrates me is when somebody breaks something and then they try to hide it from me. That upsets me. Okay. So please, please, please make sure that you let me know if you broke something. Yeah, I might be a little upset, but you're going to gain points with me by saying, "Hey, I messed up," and so let me know. Okay? I won't be. Now, if you keep breaking something over and over, yeah, I'll probably be a little upset. All right. So saw blades. There's different types of bandsaw blades, and if I hold this up, you can see that this blade is about 1/4 of an inch wide. This blade here is about 1/2 inch wide. And I'm hoping I can put a background behind this so you can actually see this. Let's see. It's really hard to see, but this blade has got teeth on it. It's got what's called a hook tooth with a raker set. So if you were to look at this blade, the blade comes down and then the tooth kind of goes like this. Okay. So this is what's actually tearing the chunks of material out is right here. That's the blade. Those are the teeth. Now, when you look at a saw blade, you have what's called a kerf. So I know this is hard to see, but this tooth is pointing this way. The one below it's pointing the opposite way. This one is pointing this way. This one is pointing that way. This one's pointing this way. And what that does is it causes the blade to be wider than the actual back of the blade. And what that stops from happening is binding the blade. If I take the teeth and I hook them up, and let's pretend my fingers are the teeth, if I have them lined up like that, then what happens is that the sides of the blade are rubbing up against the material and it's getting hot. And what happens is that's called work hardening. And it ends up breaking the blade. So if you ever hear a saw blade go tick, 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 shut it off right away and come and get me, unplug it and come and get me. By the way, don't plug in a machine if you found one unplugged. It's unplugged for a reason. So we know that something's wrong. So what we do is we put a kerf in the blade. So I take this blade, turn it this way, take this blade, turn it that way. and then I keep stacking them so they're opposite of each other all the way up. And then what that does is it causes the cut to be wider than the blade, and the blade's got a place to move. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. You can bind a bandsaw blade by simply twisting it like so. And I'll show you methods to avoid binding the blade a little later on. All right. If you look on my table there, it's very hard to see, but there is kind of some red marks here, red and black marks right here. So we have a rule in the shop, and the rule of the shop is to keep all body parts minimum of 4 inches away from any moving objects. There are some other machines that there's a bigger space, like the table saw. I tell you to keep 6 inches away from the blade. So I will never stick my hand within this area here when the blade is moving. Notice the blade's not moving right now, okay? So if this thing was on, I wouldn't do it, because all it takes is someone to bump into me, and whoop, in I go. And this is the same machine that the butchers use to cut your steaks with. The only difference between this machine and the one in the butcher shop or at Safeway or whatever it is theirs is made out of stainless steel, so they can open it up and they can hose the thing out because they don't want stuff in there. All right, the other thing, we never want to expose more of the blade than necessary. So, I mean, you can see here, I've got, good Lord, how much do I got? I got almost 6 inches of blade exposed. There's no reason to be cutting a piece of material this thin with that much blade exposed. So what we do is we loosen up this knob back here, just break it free, lower the material down on top of it, and then we lift it up so it's 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch above the material. Sometimes that's hard for people to remember. So I like to also say that, you know what? You don't want it any higher than the thickness of a pencil above the material. So I take my pencil, put it there, lower this down on top of it, remove the pencil out of the way, and slide it. Hey, it all clears. Now, at times, you may be cutting other things. Where is my car at? Car block. Oh, got it. What do I do with that? Well, you may be cutting another thing where it's kind of stepped up. You have to raise it up. Then you have to be careful, okay? But usually you set it 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch above the material. Boom, lock it down. There we go, slide it, it's good. Is it safe for me to cut right now? No, it's not, because my hand is in the line of cut. That's what this line here represents. You never put your hand in the line of cut. So whenever you see me working on things, you always see me kind of out in here and away, trying to keep out of the way of the blade, because all it takes is someone to bump into me and in I go. And then, you know, I'm going to have a hard time holding someone's hand if I got my fingers cut off. Or another thing to say, ladies, is this. You want to put a ring on it someday, right? I want you to be able to have a finger to put a ring on. Okay, so, all right. So let's say, for instance, I want to make this cut right here. Now, I can't do that here because this is in the way. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, this is the on and off switch right over here. And, you know, it's the traditional green start, red stop. But what's special about this switch is the start button is kind of embedded around this piece of plastic. So I can't accidentally hit it and turn it on. I have to intentionally poke my finger in there. Versus the stop button, I can smack that and shut the machine off. Okay? All right, let me come on back over here. All right. So it won't fit in here because the depth of this here. So what I'm kind of left to do is actually set it up to cut over here. Now you have to be careful though with this. The bandsaw blade in this machine comes down underneath and back up this side. So it spins this way. Okay. And because of that, you always want to stand right in front of the machine. So you can see the word Powermatic right here, or the number 3. That's where you stand. You never, ever, ever stand to the right side of the machine, which is where I am at right now. Okay, or the blade is right here. Because if that blade breaks, remember I told you it comes down this way? If it breaks, it's going to come down, it's going to hit the throat plate, and boom, it's going to hit me in the gut. Guys, that means you're going to be doomed to a life of t-shirts at Muscle Beach. I want you to go down to Muscle Beach and take your shirt off and impress the people. Okay? Ladies, that means you're going to be doomed to a life of one-piece swimsuits if you so choose to wear a swimsuit while you're swimming. Okay? Ain't going to want to be wearing no 2 pieces for that. So, never stand to the right. Okay? Always, always, always stand in front of the machine. So, I have adjusted the guide post. It is 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch above the material. I'm going to turn the saw on. I'm going to let the machine do the work. Okay? Let the machine do the work. Do not force it in there as hard as you can. If you have to force it in, you need to stop and investigate. Okay? Stop and investigate. All right, so I'm going to turn the machine on, allow it to come up to speed. Don't put your hand in front of the blade, off to the side. All right, you'll be tempted to take your booger picker and move that out of the way. The only time you can take your finger and move that material out of the way is when that blade has come to a complete standstill. It's got to stop all the way. It's still spinning, it's still spinning, it's still spinning. Takes time. And we're getting close. Now I can remove it with my fingers. That took about 15 seconds, didn't it? That's a lot of time. Okay, so I'm going to show you some other things that you can do to remove material out of there while the blade is moving, but you may not use your booger picker. Leave your booger picker alone. We all say we don't pick our nose, but we all know that's a lie. Okay, all right, so here we go. Watch what I do. Hands are out of the line of cut. I'm over here. Feed it in. Let the saw do the work. Okay, number 1 option you've got to remove materials out of the way. You can use your pencil. This is an excellent piece as long as the pencil is long enough. Okay? You can't use a little shorty. You got to use a long pencil, and you can come in here and you can safely move it out of the way. Here's another option, but I highly don't recommend it. You can use a pen, but if you nick your pen, you can get ink all over the place, and you can ruin it. If you nick your pencil, you can always go back and resharpen it. It's still useful. Okay? But if you use a pen, you're going to get ink all over the place. That's another option. You can also take your material that you're cutting, and you can move it out of the way with that, as long as it's long enough. And then the other option you got, I don't know, I got the lung capacity to do this now, but you can blow the material out of the way as long as you're not getting too close to the blade. Oh yeah, I can blow it out of there. Okay? All right. So that is the basic to cutting a straight cut. Now, like I told you, there are other machines that are better designed to cut straight cuts than the bandsaw. That's namely the table saw. There are chop saws that use to cut across the grain that do a very good job of that too. Okay? Now, we can also use, like I told you earlier, you can use this machine to cut outside irregular curves. So I can say, hey, you know what? I want to cut this shape in my material. So let's say I want to cut that shape out. I can do that, but there's things that I need to consider before I do that. One of them is I need to think about the thickness of the blade. So I told you that this blade is 1/4 of an inch thick or deep. This blade is 1/2 inch deep. It's a bigger blade. There are advantages and disadvantages to both blades, okay? One of the advantages of the bigger blade is that they last longer, okay? But the disadvantage of them is that you're not able to cut a really tight cut with it. So with this blade here, I would have a problem following this curve with the blade. I can do it with this blade easier, but there's a limit to how small I can cut of a curve, okay? So I'll show you, I don't think I have another machine that has a bigger blade on it right now. I think they're all these 1/4 inch blades, which is pretty common, but I like these because they seem to last a little bit longer. So I can cut a fairly tight curve with this, with a smaller blade. With the smaller blade that's 1/4 of an inch, I can cut a tighter circle. Whereas with this blade, I wouldn't be able to do quite as tight, okay? So it kind of just depends on what you're trying to do. Okay, so what I got to do is I got to lower my guidepost down, raise it up 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, lock it in place, slide it, we're good. Okay, now let me just show you how tight of a cut you can cut on this machine. And I want you to listen because it's gonna bind the blade and you're gonna hear that ee sound. And it's a sound that I've just been tuned to hear. And if I hear it, I'm gonna say you're binding the blade. Stop doing that, you know. So to cut this, I can come in, hear that, that's binding the blade. If I slow it down, okay, my blade's getting a little dull, so you can see it kind of burns the material there. But this curve is about the tightest you can cut with that. So you're going to see on this cut here, I'm going to have some problems. I'm going to give you a technique, teach you a technique that you can use to cut nice, tighter curves with bigger blades. So like I said, this one here, I'm limited to how tight I can cut that here. Okay, but I can actually cut tighter with that blade if I do a couple of methods. And that's, one is doing a relief cut, 2 is a tangent cut, and 3 is a nibble cut. And I'm going to show you that process right now. So I would have some problems cutting, even with that blade that's in there now, cutting this down in here and down in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw some straight lines. Okay, these lines are going to be what are called relief cuts. Well, what's a relief cut, Mr. Frayne? Well, a relief cut relieves the pressure on the blade. It stops you from doing this to the bandsaw blade. Because if you keep doing this after a while, you end up work hardening the blade, and then what happens? Boom, it breaks. Oh, it don't work no more. It'll make this pop, bang, and you'll be like, oh, and it'll scare you. It scares me when I hear it. So essentially, this is binding when you go around tight corners like this, and that's not good. All right, so the trick is though, and listen to me on this, this is important. Guys, listen, you're the ones that do this. Stop at the curve. Don't cut past the curve. Once you cut past the material, there ain't no putting it back, okay? That means you stop maybe just before it, that's fine. Okay, just don't cut past the curve. All right, fire it up. Then I make a cut. No, I can't because my hand is in the line of cut. Pull my hand back here, keep them out of the way. Now, do you have to follow my release cut line? No, you don't. Oops. Not good. Don't do that. Stop at the curve. Now, do I expect you to be perfect when you do this? Not the first time you use this machine, no. The more you use it, the better you get at it. I've also been using this machine for, good Lord, since I was in 9th grade, which was a long, long time ago. Okay. All right. Now what's next? Well, Mr. Frayne, you didn't cut. I got to get rid of that material. Next one I'm going to show you. I'm going to do what's called a tangent cut. So I'm going to come to this point here, and I'm going to draw a straight line right across there like that. I'm going to come over here, and I'll draw another straight line there. I'll come over here, straight line here. Come over here, straight line there. Straight line here. Straight line there. All right. Now watch the material. It's going to jump forward. Can I cut? No, I can't cut. My hand's in the line of cut. Oh, I got stuff in the way. Now, on occasion, you will get a piece of material stuck back in here. Okay? If you are ever using this machine and you have this piece, you get a piece of material that gets caught down into this area, down into here, you're not going to be able to feed your material in. Do not bear down on the material and push as hard as you can. Okay, because if you push as hard as you can and you got a little piece of material like that piece right there that's in there, and you push and that piece of material breaks, you got your hand in the line of cut, whoop, in you go, and you're going to have a hard time holding someone's hand if you got your fingers cut off. So if you're having a hard time pushing something in, stop and investigate. Okay? Stop and investigate. That is important. And look down in here and see if something is there. If you can't figure it out, come and get me. I'll help you. We'll figure it out together. Okay? So the only time I can move that, put my fingers down there is when the blade is off. It's safe to do that. Okay, I'm good. A lot of times, I like to just blow the material out of the way. You can really see it jumping forward, can't you? Okay, now I can come in here and I can kind of go this way. You don't always need to follow my lines. You just can't cut past the curve. As long as you leave the curve, you're good. All right. On this outside stuff here, I can cut across here. This blade is getting dull. Really be careful when you get new blades on there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to cut some of this stuff out, try and eliminate most of that. Don't cut past the curve. Okay. I'm getting close, but you see all this nibbly stuff here? We got to use what's called a nibble cut, and we got to cut that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, if this is the saw blade, I'm going to drag the material across the front of the blade. Okay, so come on over here. I'm going to really zoom in on this, so hopefully you can see this good. All right, here we go. Now this blade is getting dull, so it doesn't work as nice. Sharper blades do a really good job of this, and you can actually shape it. Now, is it perfect? No way, it's not. But it's not bad. Okay, we can get in there with the tool and we can sand it out. All right, here we go again. All right. Okay. Now, if you ever catch me with my goggles off, and you've seen me with my my regular glasses, and you catch me operating a machine with my regular street glasses, you by all means get to call me out. Say, Mr. Dufresne, where are your goggles at? And I always got that one person that always is looking for me. And that's fine, and I appreciate it, because that tells me, hey, you care. Because if I catch you with your goggles off, I'm going to say, hey, you got to wear your goggles. Put your goggles on. And there's no reason to get upset if I call you out on it. It's because I want you to be able to kiss that person goodnight with both your eyeballs attached. Okay? All right. Notice that I'm waiting for the blade to stop. It's hard to see. You can't really tell if it's not moving. And this is why when the shop is rocking and rolling, it gets noisy in here. And you can't really hear. You can't really hear. So you want to always be aware and pay attention, because you may come and someone may have forgot to do something. Namely, the last thing you do before you leave the machine is you clean up your mess, and you always, always, always put the guide post down all the way. Okay? Always. Of course, before you ever turn it on, you're always going to check to see, hey, is the blade moving, everything there, and all that stuff. Okay? All right. So, my friends, this is the use of the bandsaw. You can see it did a pretty good job. It's a little rough in here, but I've got sanders that we can get in there, or files, and we can sand all or get rid of all that bumpy stuff out of there. And then I would do the same thing for here to remove that. All right. That, my brothers and sisters, is the end of the demonstration on the bandsaw. So I told you so you will have you'll need to submit your notes to me. Okay, and you'll take a photograph of them. I do not want typed. I want handwritten notes. Okay, do not send me typed notes. I don't want them. And then what I want you to do, submit those to me. And once I see that you have submitted those, then I will, when we come back on Thursday, we're going to take the test. Now, Wednesday's asynchronous lesson is going to be over the over a reading, and I want you to read that. I will allow you to use those notes to take the test. What? Yeah, you just got to find the info. It's in there. Okay, and which is a good thing, you know. There's one other tool, one other piece in there that I will go over and talk to you all about, because I didn't demonstrate it, but I will talk to you about it on another day. Okay? All right. Are there any questions? Let me stop the recording.